Welcome, my friends, to Inside the Minds of Authors. I'm DC Gomez, and I'm thrilled you're joining me today for a fun conversation with a passionate author. We're kicking off the program, like it's our tradition, with a short reading from the feature book. I hope you guys enjoy it. Let's get started.
Good morning. My name is Patrick Greenwood. I am the writer of Shores of Okinawa, and today I'll be doing a reading from my book that is due out on Memorial Day weekend 2024. Prologue, Book 1, Deception. Deception, seduction ignites devastation. Arrogance and ignorance become lovers, giving birth to destruction with all extreme prejudice while darkness ascends. Prologue. Is China waging a cyber war with Taiwan? Nation-state hacking groups based in China have sharply ramped up their cyber attacks against Taiwan this year, according to multiple reports. Message from author Patrick Greenwood. Shores of Okinawa is a fictional-based novel on actual events. The events described in this novel are a work of pure fiction, including the associated characters. However, this novel is a work of fiction, or is it? Reciprocity. Office of Baozi, Chinese Triad General Council, 101 Building, Taipei, Taiwan. Mr. Jones, line 4, please. Mr. Zhu is holding, called Miss Fingal. Travis Jones, a Canadian former UN peacekeeper turned CEO of a global advisor firm, TransGlobal, braced himself for a critical phone call for one of the most powerful terrorist brokers in Asia. Travis, here, Bao. What can I do for you today? Bao was not in a very good mood. Travis, interesting development with the Vietnam project. Travis chose his words wisely. Yes, Bao, a setback, but the project is going to come to us. Hearing Bao breathe over the phone, Travis continued the hope of pacifying the terrorist broker. Mr. Zhu, be assured that all parties involved, Techline, only bought themselves enough time to hang themselves. We'll increase our resources, gain access to the stolen World Bank funds, and continue with our next phase of Operation Dragon Bolt. Bao Zhu, a stealthy, powerful global lawyer, represented several criminals, including the Chinese triads based out of Taiwan. Jones, you're getting ahead of yourself. Our friends in China want the Vietnam project back on before our mutual clients consider anything else on the table. The general is very displeased with you. Travis considered his near-term fate. Okay, Bao, you tell whoever you're working for that I'll take the share and stick it up their ass. The Vietnam project will not happen without exposing names and bank accounts to the World Bank. There was a pause when Bao considered what Jones had to say. Jones, our investors are not hiding in the shadows. This Kindle guy got the best of you. I suggest you make some work and find out what this man is all about. Travis knew deep down that Bao, member of the foregone triads and a very, very powerful lawyer, knew that he was right, that Jack Kendall got the best of him. Bao, dissatisfied with Jones's direction on the Vietnam takeover project, murmured to himself, Kendall, I wonder what you really said to Jones. Bao reached into his laptop to access a hidden video feed from Travis Jones' office in Canada. Let's see what happened here. As Bao played back the conversation between Kendall and Jones, he realized this guy had a lot more guts than Jones originally realized. Jack Kendall, CIA. American hero. Served in Marine Corps. Interesting. Bao reaches for his phone to contact his admin. Please have Louis Tang come to see me. Bao hung up the phone smirking. Yeah, Jack, let's just see what you really are up to.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Inside the Minds of Authors. I'm excited you guys are joining us this evening. We have an amazing guest. It's going to be a fabulous conversation. If you're new to the podcast, subscribe. You don't want to miss a single episode. We have amazing author and new books every Monday evening, so you don't want to miss out. And if you've been following us for a while, make sure to give us a review, share with a friend. We're always better when we're growing together. So let's talk to our guest. Hello, Mr. Patrick. How are you?
Good. Thank you so much for having me today. Very nice to be on your show.
It is such a pleasure to have you. It's such a pleasure to have an author, also a podcaster with us today. So I'm so excited.
Yes.
We're going to jump in right in this book because I have questions I need to know because you planted the seed. Is it real or is it not? Is this fiction or not? What is going on? You're prior military. You have this information. you ghostwriter for cybersecurity. I'm like, now I have a question. Where did this story come from? Tell us.
So I get to be transparent. You are correct. I was in the cybersecurity field for 28 years, and about a year and a half ago, I retired and became a full-time writer. In my first book, which is called Sunrise in Saigon, that was based a little bit on some non-fictional events, even though it was a fictional novel. And I decided to take that genre forward and writing into Shores of Okinawa. A lot of the book is based on the Jack Kendall series that I created in my first book. And it kind of carries forward to now Jack is dealing with global terrorists. He's dealing with China hacking Taiwan, which obviously is a very real reality event today. China has been hacking Taiwan for years, among other countries. And in this book, it talks about how China kind of partners with some international criminal organizations that have sort of a mixed agenda. The book also picks up a very interesting storyline of global hackers partnering with nation states, like China recruiting hackers and the United States recruiting hackers. And suddenly there's this undercurrent of hackers going against hackers. So where does the loyalties rely? Obviously, when there's money on the table, there's Bitcoin on the table, there's world dominance on the table, where all these alliances sort of kind of figure itself out. So the book really takes a great storyline of, how China goes about hacking, how Taiwan counters hacking, how US gets involved secretly. But then you have this undercurrent of these international criminals that are deciding their fate, going, you know what, maybe I'm going to side with China for the next couple of days. No. Screw that. I'm going to work with the Americans. No, screw that. I'm with the Indians. So it does show some true, interesting things that happen in real life. Hackers do hack hackers. They go after each other like rivals. Governments go after each other. And when people talk about, are we at war with China, or is China at war with Taiwan? That they've been at a cyber war for years. Even though no bullets have flown, God forbid that doesn't happen. But the idea of people stealing information, that goes back 28 years. So the book really kind of follows that storyline. It does introduce a lot of characters in different countries. There's things that happen in Portugal that have some reference to what happens in Taiwan. But ultimately, the book does come down to, can Jack and his partners save the day by preventing China from hacking Taiwan? And that was kind of the backdrop of how Shores of Okinawa was created.
There's so much stuff happening. There's so much fun behind the scenes. I take it for granted that hackers hack each other. I'm like,
Yes, they do.
what? What does that mean? How does that work?
There is an underground in our society today where hackers are everywhere. Many of them are hackers without borders. When Russia invaded the Ukraine, one of the first things that happened on the very first day of the invasion was the president of Ukraine turning to the hacker community saying, hey, for the love of our country, I need you to go hack those guys. And they did. They openly came out, and the hacker underground in Ukraine completely started hacking the Russian systems, and vice versa. The Russian hackers started hacking the Ukrainians. And we're seeing the same thing in Israel and Gaza right now, where you're having, obviously, Israel has tremendous cybersecurity assets and resources, but so does Hamas. So now you're seeing what is being reported on the news, where you're seeing the bombings and all the tragedy happening to people. But what you're not seeing is what's happening at the hacker layer, right? Israeli hackers going after Hamas, Hamas hackers going after Israelis, and you have the Syrian hackers, Iranian hackers. So there's all this undercurrent of hackingism that goes on worldwide. And I want to try to capture that in the book by showing that the Yakuza in Japan, which is a crime organization, has a hacker element. Their rival is the Chinese triads. They have a hacker element. So now they're fighting each other. But at the same time, sometimes they're doing it for kind of a noble cause. Yakuza got involved to say, well, we want to save Taiwan because we have some business interests. Hackers go after the Chinese hackers. That kind of mobilization of resources does happen today. And in America, we have our hacking resources as well at the government level. We have it at the private level. And I had a chance to deal with a lot of that in my 28 years in tech, working for different tech companies and seeing how devastation hacks really can be. 2024, we're getting a lot of deep fake hacking going on right now, especially with the election coming up, and you're getting these voice calls thinking it's not Donald Trump or it's not President Biden, and somebody faked their voice, and how realistic that's become. That has a kind of a play in this book as well. So that's another exciting part of the book.
You are having so much fun with everything going on. It's amazing. I was like, you're just like giggling with energy. I love it.
Yes.
How much research did you put into these books to get them to be current and be able to get that feel of like, oh, this is happening. This is not future ideas. This is now.
I experienced a lot in real life of what I put in the book. So I had a chance to kind of look back upon my professional career in tech and draw upon some real world experiences I had, and having to come face to face with hackers and come face to face with virtual resources out there. I would go to a tech conference in Las Vegas, and you're sitting at Black Hat, and you look around the room and a third of the people are on the Interpol's most wanted list. right? And you just have to sort of understand that's the culture in which it is. But at the same time, I did do a lot of research, obviously looking at the latest and greatest problems with China and Taiwan and monitoring that very closely, but also looking at, what other cyber attacks are being reported. I mean, every day there's a ransomware attack being reported. A healthcare loses medical records. Some power grid got shut down. The Colonial Pipeline was shut down, a year and a half ago. These are all real world hacks that happen every single day. I tend to read those and I tend to blog about those in my professional life as well. It's the same thing. There's vulnerabilities, and people buy a brand new phone and they think the phone's going to be nice and safe, and they don't bother putting any security on it. And within 48 hours, their mail's hacked. So I don't think we don't have to sway far from real world cyber. What I kind of spent more of my research on was looking at actual hacking groups that have come out and said, we're going to temporarily align with the Ukraine, or we're going to temporarily align with Israel or Taiwan or the Hamas, whatever, and trying to understand what really compelled them. Was it money? Was it ideology? Was it the fact that they just felt compelled? And I think hackers globally, some have a conscience. They hack for a cause. And then others just hack for just pure money. So I did some time and research that as well for the book.
You're bringing all these pieces together and you're talking and touching on very global issues and very current and day affairs.
Yes.
Because if I get another more phone call of the FBI coming to get me, or that my social security has been compromised, I'm like, how did you get this much information? I like the fact that you're telling me that some of them do have a conscience. They're not just doing it for money. They have a cause. They have this concept behind. Because sometimes I think we only focus on the people doing damage.
Yes,
So
that's correct. A lot of hackers too. And again, there's so many of them around the world. But when you go to countries like Nigeria, many of those hackers in Nigeria are the ones that are behind a lot of the email phishing attacks, where people are getting lottery winnings, or hey, you haven't seen me in 20 years, but I need some money. Could you wire me money? That comes out of Nigeria. They're prone for that. They've been excellent. The pros are doing that for years. But so is hacks coming out of Iran and North Korea, and hacks coming out of South Africa and coming out of Argentina and all these other places. So hacking is a global thing. What's interesting is when you see a world crisis happening, oil spills is a good example. Was that caused by cyber attack? More often than not, you don't see that in the news. But if you go to dark web and go to some of the back end channels of the internet communication, you'll read somebody will post 5 words. Yep, it was us. Right. And many times they won't claim because they don't want the visibility. They don't want the federal government or the international government to come down on them. But there are some that truly believe in causes of the climate crisis. Some of them will hack into oil companies to help shut down a refinery because they believe that oil is poisoning the earth. They're kind of all over the map. But what's interesting when I was researching that for this story, it was interesting how some of them did in fact say, we may do it not even for money. We're just doing it for a cause. So some people who believe that Taiwan should be saved are committing their resources and their capabilities to block China's efforts. They also do it at their own peril. It is fascinating to really get sunk into the hacker under community and realize that many of them do have a conscience, but many of them are also greedy financial capitalists as well. They want Bitcoin now. They want digital currency now because it can't be traced as well.
you have touched once again in all these things that in every community, good or bad, you have all these pieces together. You have the
Yes,
ones who are there for, altruism, and the capitalists who are there for the money.
exactly.
So loving coming how you do it. You
Exactly.
transition from full-time work to being a full-time writer. How's
Yes.
that transition worked?
So, great question. I started in May of 2022. I was in tech for up to 28 years. I finally woke up that morning and said, I cannot do this anymore. I'm not going to travel. I think the industry is changing a lot, how people are getting employed and how people are getting let go. I just figured it's time. And that very next day I got up and I actually got on upwork.com and created a profile. And I applied for my very first gig of writing a blog. And I won it. I bid it, I think it was $25 an hour, whatever it was. And I got fired a week later because the blog was terrible. So I learned very vividly that there's formatting, there's all sorts of things that go into blogging. I came into it more as a trial and error. I had 2 more gigs after that, got fired again. Another Blake got fired again. Finally, about 3 months later, I finally figured out that you got to get the formatting down. You have to get the rules in which a blog is written. And when I started writing that way, then it took off and I started writing for, 10, 12 clients at a time. However, that was really taking away from my novel writing. So Sunrise in Saigon just came out in 2022. I started working on Shores of Okinawa, and that's coming out Memorial Day weekend this year in 2024. But it was the blogging was taking me away from doing the fictional writing. If I had a choice, I would love to fictional write books, but we all have bills and things to pay. So the blogging is more my way of supporting myself. But at the same time, it also gives me the resources necessary to keep writing these wonderful fictional novels as well. But it has been going very well. I love writing. I'm actually, to be honest, at DC, I'm actually dyslexic since I was a kid. So I not only write every day, but I have to go extra cautious in how I'm writing, especially with grammar and sentence structures and things. I don't use ChatGPT to write. Everything I write is original content for my clients, and I take a lot of pride in that. So even though I have to overcome a dyslexia challenge, I still want to deliver 100% original content to my clients. The same way when I'm writing books. I'm not going ChatGPT, write me a thriller, hacking, China, Taiwan, Bitcoin, go. No, I literally write everything out as is original content.
You have pointed out the fact that regardless of the disability that we're all given, you can overcome it and
Yes.
create every single day. So I am so passionate about this. I love it. I also need to find out, when do you have time? Because now you're blogging for clients, you're writing your books, and you're a podcaster. As a
Yes.
fellow person in this bubble, when do you find time to
Well,
do it all? And how do you prioritize?
oh, come on, look at you. You're great. You're a Matt. You have a wonderful side. You're incredible. I mean, you're a role model for all of us out there. I mean, you're a multitasker galore. So, Writers and Writers of Triple Espresso podcast broadcasts on Wednesdays and Saturdays at 10 a.m. Pacific. I've had almost 170 writers that have been on it over the 2-year period. And the whole point of the podcast does nothing more than help writers promote their work. I do not charge for the podcast. I make it free to writers as well. I work with PR firms like Vicki Mickelson and people at Creative Edge. The writers all come on. It's really a forum to help writers promote. When I started writing, everyone struggles with the marketing side of writing. Everyone struggles with how to promote myself. So that's really what motivated me to become a podcaster, right? But it also builds a community of people that, start understanding my work, understand what I'm doing as well in my books. So podcasting to me is really kind of a community event type of thing, meeting people. At the same time, I read every book that comes on. So every writer who comes on my podcast, I buy a copy of the book and I support them by reading it and doing a 5-star review up on Amazon as well. So I'm a huge fan of promoting our writing community, and that's what really kind of spawned that. The blogging, I literally set aside 30 hours a week and say, okay, I have 5 clients. I'm doing this blog on Monday, this one on Tuesdays. I'm doing a white paper on Wednesday, or I'm doing an ebook on Friday. But then on the evenings, on Wednesdays, Fridays, Sundays is when I do fictional writing. And that's when I commit myself to, okay, let's get this book out. It's not going to write itself. But, if you love what you do, there is no clock. And being a writer, especially being dyslexic and proving I can be a writer, is such motivation that I don't look at the clock and say, okay, it's 7:30 in the morning, start writing. I get up in the morning, have coffee, go for a power walk with my friend, come back, and then say, okay, now let's dive in and start writing. That's the beauty part about writing, is that you can write at midnight, you can write at 2 in the afternoon, but if you love it, there is no clock. So to me, I love what I do, love what comes out of it. Love to see people smile when they come on the podcast and talk about their great work. But most importantly of all, it gives me some perspective of when I'm struggling. I look at other people's lives and say, wow, this writer struggled too. So I learn just as much from the writers. I hope that they learn from me as well.
Your energy is contagious, so I can understand writers coming to you and just being excited and smiling about it, because you just radiated it. So it makes it easy to be in the same wave with you. So
Yeah.
I appreciate it. I love that you said it. When you're loving what you do, there is no clock.
No.
So
Mhm.
you give yourself permission to be flexible. You're giving yourself permission to write as it comes. Do you feel that you can write every day if you were given a chance, or are you one of those people that has like, okay, I have a deadline. This is when I'm writing?
So when I first started writing, one of the biggest mistakes I made was I treated myself like I was a technology sales professional. Get up in the morning, 6:30, shower, coffee, Cheerios, 8 o'clock, get going. And it was the worst mistake I made, because I was treating the writing world like I did in the tech world, right? Calendar schedules, go-to meetings, Zoom meetings. That was a huge mistake, because I had to transition out of the old world to the new world, which is being a writer full time. And since I've kind of become more comfortable being a writer full time, I sleep in, and I'm not shameful about it. It's 9:30. Huh, okay. Get up, go for a walk with my friend Gloria, and then come back and say, okay, what am I going to do now? Well, let's just break open some coffee and some Danish or whatever, or a croissant, and say, okay, it's 11:30. You're no longer a clock watcher. You're no longer thinking, okay, I've got to have that deadline by 2 o'clock. To me, I know when things are due based on clients' requests. But I give myself plenty of time to say, okay, that's not due till Saturday, so I'll start writing that on Thursday. This one's due Friday, I'll write on Wednesday. But the idea of living in like the old corporate world where you had to be deadlines and be quota driven or be task driven, being a writer, you want to remove yourself from that, because then you start feeling writing becomes a burden. And when you get into writer's blocks, like you probably have experienced as well, Dees, is that you suddenly freeze going, God, how am I going to overcome this? How am I going to overcome? Versus saying, okay, just let it go, man. It's going to come. If you truly believe that as a writer, you're writing at 2 a.m. You're writing on Sunday mornings before church. You're writing it on Saturdays before basketball or hockey, because you know you can. Where the old world was, it's 8 o'clock, 9:30 meeting, 11:30 lunch meeting. Writing is like, let it roll whenever it rolls. And that's what I think I really love about our profession, is that you can write anytime. So I don't try to put myself on a fixed schedule, but I do know when things are due, and I do know that I want to get things out. But no, I no longer look at that calendar and go, oh, you have nothing scheduled. What's wrong? That kind of thing. Yeah, that's a big transition becoming a writer.
You have definitely made the jump because you're very comfortable being fluid and flexible. And
Yes.
since we're talking about those great tips, what would you tell an up and coming author who's thinking, I want to take the big leap and I'm terrified? What would you tell them?
Well, first of all, everyone is a writer. They just don't know it yet. I know Amy Tan said that in one of her interviews that she did. She's the one that wrote the Joy Luck Club. And when she said that, it was the most beautiful things to hear from a writer as successful as she is. You're a writer, you just don't know it yet. Everyone has a story. Everybody has a travel. A lot of my books that I've written have to do with places I've traveled to. And I've visually been to Portugal. I've been to Vietnam. I've been to South Korea. I've been to Philippines and Japan. So I feel comfortable writing that. If I'm an up and coming writer and I start panicking going, what if I can't? Turn it around. What if you can? And every word you write is your words that you're writing. And ultimately, you will have to be your own editor. You have to be your own cheering squad. If you think that people are not going to like your work, you're the only person who has to like your work. If you're going to really think that you're going to write something to appease the masses, good luck, because there's what, 500 billion people out there. Good luck. To me, being a writer means that you want your words to come out and you want to be proud of the words that you have coming out. And if people dig it, thumbs up. If people don't, no harm, no foul. You just keep writing because it's what you want to do. But I have met a lot of writers, and it's funny because some are like, I gave up. Well, why? Because, well, I just couldn't do it. Well, what couldn't you do? And they're stumped, like, well, I just couldn't think of a word. Well, then break out of the source. Just do this, look for that. I mean, it's funny to how people have stopped for all these reasons that are all self-inflicting. If they can get past the self-inflictingness and say, you're now stopping your own self. No one's stopping. This is you. And they overcome that and they start writing. Oh, the work they create is fantastic. But if anybody wants to write, just remember, we're all writers inside. Absolutely.
That is such a beautiful advice. And it's such a great way to remind people that it's okay. You can write. You can also take your time writing. So I appreciate it.
Yes.
Speaking of writing, what do you have going on next? What is the next project that is going on for Mr. Patrick? Do tell.
Well, you know about Shores of Okinawa coming out Memorial Day weekend, 2024. The next book after that is called The Scent of the Lotus. It is a story. It kind of goes preamples my first book of Sunrise in Saigon. It goes back to two main characters in the book, which was Forrest Adams, who was the CIA station chief in Vietnam, and the hotel manager, Miss Bowie, who we have a love affair with. The book, The Scent of the Lotus, actually takes it back to where they met when they were children, when they were kind of coming up in the world. So Forrest was stationed in Vietnam in the 1970s. Bowie was a street orphan, and they met while the whole town was falling apart towards the end of the war. He was protecting the embassy. She was trying to jump over the fence. He tried to grab her. She got pulled back. They got separated. And then he spends the next 30 years of his life trying to get back to Vietnam to find her. So it does predate Sunrise in Saigon, but it is such a beautiful story. When people read my first book, they thought, okay, Jack Kendall and Lynn, we get the whole love affair, whatever. But it was the Forrest and Bowie story. They came back and said, hey, how exactly did this CIA station chief and this beautiful manager of a glorious 7-star hotel meet? Oh, they met. And everyone goes, you should write a story about that. So after Shores of Okinawa comes out this year, I'm going to be launching The Scent of the Lotus on April 30th, 2025, because that is the 50-year anniversary of the fall of Saigon, which is when the book takes place. So that will be coming out next year, will be called The Scent of the Lotus.
You have a schedule. You are packed. I am excited. I'm celebrating. I was like, ooh, that sounds amazing. I'm so happy for you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
We
Thank
definitely
you.
want to hear about it. So this is going to be fabulous.
Yes, thank you.
So, dear, tell us, where can our listeners find you, where they can learn more about the books, where they can get to know you more?
Absolutely. So my website is cyclewriterllc.com, which is my company name as well. And that has a link to my podcast, Writers on Writers over Triple Expressive Podcast. And also it has a synopsis of both Sunrise in Saigon and Shores of Okinawa as well. And also there, that's where people can find my email address, which is cyclewriterllc@gmail.com as well. And I'm also on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, all the social medias as well. But everyone pretty much goes to my main website first, and from there it has links to all the different social accounts as well.
I'm liking that you can find directions to everything from your main site. I
Yeah,
truly appreciate it. It makes life easier for everybody. So thank you. Thank you. So, dear, before you leave us, are you ready for the lightning round?
absolutely.
Easy peasy. Let's see how you do.
Okay.
Candlelight dinner or breakfast in bed?
Breakfast in bed.
Nice. Documentary or fiction?
Fiction.
Here's the last one. Let's see how you do. If you could meet any famous person, dead or alive, who would you pick?
Bono. Bono.
Really?
I'm a big YouTube fan. I think he's amazing. He writes well. His music for years has changed the world. I'm a huge Bono fan.
Oof, such a good one. Awesome. Dear, thank you so much for joining us. Do you have any closing remarks?
I got to tell you, thanks everyone. Thanks, CC, for having me on your wonderful podcast as well. I look forward to you coming on my podcast. I'd love to have you on as well. You're a great host. I'm very thankful for what you do and help promoting writers like myself on your show. And I wish you wonderful success as well.
Oh, dear, thank you. Thank you. Coming from you, that's such a huge compliment because you understand how much writers enjoy promoting our works. And sometimes we're a little shy about it. So I appreciate it. And thank you for the offer.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So, to our listeners, go ahead, check out Mr. Patrick, check out the website, go look for the books. They're going to blow you away. And remember, there's another one coming out next year. So, mark those calendars. And we'll be back next Monday for another amazing author. Bye, everyone.